Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 series, Can We Save the Oakland A's? And we are still at the start of the offseason after winning a third title in 5 years and a fourth championship overall with the Oakland A's here in 2040. Going to be a very busy offseason for us, as we've talked a lot about. We definitely need to clear a fair amount of salary from our payroll before we get to the start of next season. So this roster is going to look very different next year than it does right now. Last episode, we did our annual roster review and started discussing some of our plans for the postseason. This episode, we're going to focus on some of our top prospects and right now some of our former players and some of the other top prospects around fictional Major League Baseball here as we head towards 2041. Start off taking a quick look at some of the top prospects in baseball, although some of these players who we thought about drafting or acquiring several years ago probably no longer considered quite top prospects. One who definitely is the center fielder Alvaro Cepeda, center fielder for the Cleveland Guardians, just completed his first full major league season. 279 average, 36 doubles, 32 homers, almost 100 ribbies, put up a 134 WRC plus. Also an outstanding defensive center fielder, put up a 6.5 WAR for the Guardians. IAFA signing from 2034. We were turned off by his very poor personality, but he certainly has performed pretty well in his first full major league season. Cameron Rhodes, a player who was picked 24th overall in 2036, made his major league debut at the end of this year for the Rockies organization, hit just a .194 in 93 at-bats, 67 WRC plus, and barely above replacement level for the switch-hitting young outfielder. Kurt Hall, a second baseman who was a second-round pick 2.5 years ago in the summer of 2038, now viewed as the number 47 prospect in baseball. He progressed from rookie ball to A-ball this year, although the potential two-way player was a combined 1-12 on the mound with ERAs of 5.17 and 7.66 in rookie ball and A-ball respectively. Somewhat more effective with the bat, at least in rookie ball, where he hit 292 with 12 dingers, but he did struggle in A-ball, hitting just a .129 in 70 at-bats. Still, looking at his profile, we think he can become a useful major league hitter, and we still think he can be a useful major league starter if everything works out. Certainly a lot of work to get him there, but definitely continues to look like a pretty interesting prospect. Sawyer Wenda, 24-year-old, who was a first-round pick back in 2034, still has not made his major league debut, and he's going to be 25 years old by tax day 2041. Spent most of this year in Double-A, where he hit 285, and he struck out in his only at-bat at the Triple-A level. Looking at his profile, honestly, doesn't look like more than anything but potentially a fourth or fifth outfielder to me at this point. Similarly, left fielder Greg Grace, a 25-year-old who is still mired in rookie ball. Mr. Magnificent's career out of Florida State has ended up being anything but, and he is another guy who looks like best case scenario is probably he's a marginal major leaguer, and it looks like he's not even affiliated with a team right now. The Seattle organization released him yesterday, so he's actually a free agent. We'll offer him a minor league contract. I don't think Grace is going to be as magnificent as his nickname from FSU made him sound. but certainly could be a little bit of organizational depth for us. Last but not least, Alexis Campos, an IAFA signing from 2038. Split the year between a couple of rookie ball teams in the Rays organization with league average production overall between the two levels, WAR of over 2 between the two levels. Still looks like a potentially excellent contact hitter who could be slashing doubles and triples all over just about any ballpark, but he's never going to walk, and he's not likely to hit a ton of home runs either. Turning to a few pitching prospects and organizations other than the A's that we've been following. Edison Faulo, a 28-year-old pitcher out of Canada, developing into a respectable major league starter. 8-8 this year for the Pirates organization. Struck out 186 batters in 180 and a third innings. Did give up 30 home runs, though, and have a 4.74 ERA. But still, when all was said and done, put up a 2.7 WAR and has a profile of a guy who looks like he could be a solid back end of the rotation left-hander for many years to come. He also was actually named to the All-Star team this year. With a strong pitching staff like ours, I'd say he's a back of the rotation kind of guy, but could certainly see him with many teams having a more prominent role than that. We already talked about Kurt Hall. Kazuki Asari, an international free agent signing from 2038, is now the number 16 prospect in baseball. Was a combined 4-3 between rookie ball and A ball this year. Only 20 years old. Still has a profile that looks like he could be a pretty interesting major league starter if all goes well in terms of his development. And Josh Kiesler, a 22-year-old who was a fifth-round pick back in 2036, was not a profile that we were all that interested in. We were very turned off by his control, but I know that some members of the worldwide scouting department were intrigued by him. Spent the entire year in A-ball, started just 6 games, assuming that means he had some injuries. He is fragile in terms of his injury proneness as a 22-year-old. 1-1 with a 3.38 ERA in that limited action. And, an arthritic elbow that he suffered in late April kept him out 4 to 5 months. Can't say that a 22-year-old with very poor control and an arthritic elbow is likely to end up being a very easy path to major league success for Mr. Kiesler, so we'll probably stop following his career going forward. Turning our attention now to a few of our former players and or former farmhands. Byron Brain, who has that profile that we don't like for hitters with very poor contact and a brutal avoid strikeouts rating. Continues to be the starting catcher for the Miami Marlins organization. Was on the interstate for at least the 3rd consecutive year this year in terms of his batting average. Yeah, he's been 3 years in a row where he's hit under 200. Did have 25 homers and 61 ribbies, 228 strikeouts in just 473 at-bats, though, so approaching the 50% strikeout rate, which he has had in previous seasons. When all was said and done, hit an 82 WRC plus and a 1.6 WAR. The trade that we made when we sent him away did not really work out the way that we had hoped. Andy Brailovsky had a nice run with us and was part of our 2036 and 2038 World Championship teams. But we were hoping that Fish Patterson, the pitcher that we picked up for Brain, might be a long-term member of our rotation, and we ended up trading him away a couple years ago at this point. So although I don't mind moving on from Brain because we're in an incredible spot as far as our catcher position right now, and he just didn't have a profile that was all that intriguing to me. Certainly would have helped for perhaps a little more production from the players we got in return for him. Sergio Figueroa had a off year for him for the Houston Astros. Batting average plunged to 224 and just 17 homers and 54 ribbies and 514 at-bats. Still has a profile that looks like he could be a useful left-handed bat. But at this point, he's going to be 30 years old before next season starts. And although his first 4 seasons were really strong, the big drop-off in performance this year, and I think some drop-off in his ratings, certainly from where we thought he was at the end of last season, not looking like quite the same player with lower power potential, lower eye potential, and an overall slightly lower rating. May not reach the lofty heights over the course of his career that perhaps the Astros were hoping he would. Checking in on a few pitchers, Andres Rojas, the veteran knuckleballer, 15-7 with a 3.55 ERA for the Yankees. He is now a 9-time All-Star, 9 times Buehler, and also won a Cy Young Award almost a decade ago. Joe Lewin, pitcher that we traded away, left-hander, has become a very good major league starter for the Phillies. 14-10. The ERA did climb to 4.71 this year. Still put up a 2.2 WAR for the Philadelphia organization, and has a profile that suggests that that 4.71 ERA might be a little bit high for him. Certainly over the course of his major league career, has a 3.76 ERA, so he's generally been significantly better than he was this past year. Not even yet 28 years old, so I think the Phillies would certainly hope for a return to form for Mr. Lewin. Tim Killeen, a 27-year-old reliever that we traded away, 1-5 record with 1 save for Seattle, ERA slightly over 4, over 72 2/3 innings, a bit above replacement level, throws incredibly hard, reaches triple digits on the radar gun. Part of the reason we moved on from him is we were concerned about his control, and he did walk 42 batters in just 72 2/3 innings this past year. And last but not least, another guy that we'll check in on for the final time this year, the Purdue Boilermaker, Swampy Niswanger, just has never become a real major league pitcher. Does have a little bit of service time, but it's been a while at this point. Split the year between AA and AAA across a couple of organizations. He's with the Rays organization at this point, but did not have an ERA below 5.83 at any of his 3 stops in AA and AAA here in 2040. And he's going to be turning 29 years old in just 5 days. So unlikely that Swampy is going to have a big-time major league career. We'll pivot our attention now to some players who we hope will be helping our A's organization at the major league level in the not-too-distant future. Our farm system ranks 7th out of 30 overall at this point. We've had several key players, particularly a couple of key pitchers in Ernesto Comunez and Federico Arriola, graduate from the prospect list to full major leaguers this year. And another guy who did contribute for us at the major league level this year is the brilliant young catcher/first baseman, Jonah Richards. Soon to be 24 years old, finally made his major league debut this year. All he did was hit .345 for us in 55 at-bats with a 168 WRC plus in September. And, he helped us win a World Series as well. Batted just .241 in 29 postseason at-bats, but did have 2 homers and 4 ribbies for us. Put up a 132 WRC plus in the postseason. So Mr. Richards certainly going to be almost certainly going to be an everyday player for us next year at first base or catcher, depending on how this offseason goes. Looking forward to seeing what he can do for us going forward. Interestingly, he's the only top 50 prospect left in our organization, but we do have 6 other prospects that rank in the top 100 in all of baseball. And the highest ranked of the remainder of our prospects is closer Joe Hilman, number 56 prospect in baseball, 5th round pick 3 years ago out of Cleburne County High School. Spent the entire year in Double-A for us, went 7-2 with 37 saves, a sub-2 ERA, 10.6 strikeouts per 9 innings. Throws in triple digits. Stuff still, we believe, can be world class with that incredible fastball. If that splitter continues to come along and his control gets a little bit better, I think that Mr. Hilman can be a very important part of our bullpen going forward. Mike Homer, a two-way player, was a second-round pick in 2036 of ours, now listed as the number 61 prospect in baseball. Doesn't necessarily look like he's going to be a huge offensive player at the major league level. Take a look at his batting stats while we're talking about his offense, and quite a varied performance this year. Hit just 204 in high A ball, but then hit 339 with 10 homers in Double-A and 327 with 11 homers in Triple-A. Basically, at his age and with his level of experience, even though he hadn't done much in high A ball, we just decided it was time to promote him and challenge him a bit more. And he obviously did very well at those higher levels offensively. As I said, I don't think the bat is going to be exceptional, but he is a very versatile defensive player. And with a left-handed hitting bat that can play a number of positions around the field and durability, I think he could be useful in terms of his potential contributions as an everyday player. Importantly, though, as a pitcher, looks like he could be a pretty useful major league starter as well if all goes well. Plus stamina, plus control. We think his stuff could be major league average. And this year, across those 3 levels as a pitcher, he was a combined 18-6 with a combined ERA below 3. And again, performed better at Double-A and Triple-A than he did in high A ball. And he combined for a very strong 6.3 WAR as a pitcher alone across those 3 levels. So certainly looking forward to seeing what Mr. Homer can do for us. Probably a back end of the rotation starter and or a reliever for us. Probably a borderline starter as an everyday player for us. But with his versatility, I think he could be a real interesting player to have on a major league roster. Closer Wilson Wrangle, IAFA signing from 2035, now the number 67 prospect in baseball. Outstanding curve and a really good cutter. 24 saves for us as our closer in Triple-A this year with a sub-2 ERA. He is a left-handed reliever, going to be turning 23 just before next season starts. And Wrangle is among a large list of relief pitchers we have in Triple-A or the higher levels of our minors that make us potentially comfortable in moving on from some of our veteran relievers this coming offseason. Roque de la Paz is another potentially outstanding left-handed arm in the lowest levels of our organization. Played in the DSL, made his professional debut this year. 1-2 record with 9 saves, a sickly 6.53 ERA over 20 2/3 innings pitched, and a similarly sickly 15 walks allowed. He's dealing with some forearm inflammation right now. Number 82 prospect in baseball. Those of you who follow us closely know that we received trade offers for him not that long ago that we decided to not accept. Still think that his stuff could be potentially outstanding, and looking forward to seeing what he can become over the coming weeks and months and years. Interestingly, also, his nickname is Prince of Slider, although at this point, although we have high expectations for his slider, it's nowhere near as good as his fastball quite yet. Jerry Stevenson is a seventh round pick from just less than a year and a half ago, who's magically become the number 86 prospect in baseball, despite winning only 2 games in rookie ball over his first 2 professional seasons. 1-11 this year with a sickly 5.70 ERA and an absolutely disgusting 64 walks in 77 and a third innings pitched. That said, 19 years old, throws in the mid-90s, and certainly think that he could have a very versatile arsenal and the ability to be a interesting major league starter if he fully develops. Big question is, how well will his control develop? And our final top 100 prospect, another starting pitching prospect, Jesus Ramos, an 8th round pick from 2036. So we have finally started to hit, or at least potentially hit, on some of those high school pitchers that we tend to like to take. Split the year between AA and AAA, a combined 17-3 at both levels, but a outstanding 1.70 ERA in AA with a less than impressive 5.06 ERA in AAA. That being said, still put up a WAR of almost 3 at the AAA level, struck out almost 10 per 9 innings, and certainly has a profile that indicates he could be a pretty useful major league pitcher. With the way our pitching staff looks right now, probably thinking about him more as a back of the rotation type of starter. Would love if his control improved a bit, but certainly not counting on that at this point. But plus stuff, plus movement, good stamina, and a potential 4-pitch arsenal if everything works out while he throws in the mid to high 90s. Don't know that he's ever going to be an ace, but think that he could be a pretty good pitcher for us, and pretty good value for a guy who was picked in the 8th round a little over 4 years ago. And although the farm system has slipped to that 7th overall ranking, and we've only got the one top 50 prospect in Richards, a very deep farm system. We've also got 8 prospects ranked between 101 and 200, including several pitchers that we think can be helping us very soon. David Bergos, a starter in Las Vegas for us, going to be out for 6 months after suffering a torn flexor tendon in his elbow, but looks like he could be a solid back of the rotation type of player for us. Was a combined 14-2 between AA and AAA this year before he suffered that season-ending injury. Chad Evans, 2nd round pick of ours in 2035. Weird year for him. We promoted him all the way from high A ball up to AAA at the start of this season. Started for us, closed for us in AAA, 3-4 record with 5 saves, 4.22 ERA over 53 and a third innings. Not incredibly impressive. Don't love that he's fragile, but you look at plus stuff, plus movement, and plus control, with an outstanding slider and curveball, as well as a solid change and an excellent cutter. And he's a guy who we think could be a very useful arm out of the bullpen for us. If we get lucky in the development lab and his stamina improves a bit, he also has a profile where he could be a useful starter for us down the line. Devin Carrick, a 6th round pick from 2038, split the year between rookie ball and A ball. Was not exceptional offensively at either level, but still think that the left-handed hitting outfielder has the potential to have a interesting major league bat with potentially excellent gap power and home run power. David Palomares, an IAFA signing from 2037, really had a rough year for us. His first full year in A ball, hit just a $178 and 405 at bats. He was really good in the DSL a year earlier, certainly struggled when he made the jump to A-ball this year. But looking at his profile, his durability, and a solid glove, think that the left-handed hitting middle infielder could be a useful major leaguer for us down the line. Luis Aguayo, another one of those AAA arms, the left-hander with absolutely filthy stuff, who made his major league debut at the end of this year. All he did was strike out 10 batters in 4 2/3 innings. Pretty similarly to that, he struck out 60 in 36 2/3 combined in AA and AAA. I think that he is another reason why we're willing to trade away some of these more expensive veteran relievers this offseason. John Bramlett is a guy who's not as far along. First-round pick of ours this past year, 0-4 with a 5.89 ERA in his rookie ball debut, allowed 8 homers and walked 29 in just 36 2/3 innings. But still think that if the left-handed pitcher reaches his full potential, he could be an interesting starter for us several years from now. Chris Lance is a guy that we just picked up in a trade with Atlanta today. They were originally looking for RoDeLaZ for him. We were unwilling to do that, but still were able to bring Mr. Lance on board. It was not the RoDeLaZ trade. RoDeLaZ is a trade that we made earlier. This was the trade that we made when we got rid of our longtime infielder, Andy Toribio. Feel that Lance is a pretty interesting guy to bring on board. At 26 years old, he's not a big-time prospect at this point. He's only got 40 days of major league service, but still has 2 option years left, and expect the left-handed hitting first baseman to be in the mix for a roster spot next year. And if we do end up moving on from the catcher, Mr. Mendoza, after the 2041 season, and moving Jonah Richards into his more natural role as a catcher, Lance could certainly be our starting first baseman come 2042. Final top 200 prospect in our organization, another reliever in AAA in Eric Keach, 8th round pick from 2035, right-handed reliever, well above average stuff, above average movement, above average control. Put up a 2.33 ERA for us in AAA this year. He's going to be turning 23 at the end of this month. Another guy who's really deserving of a major league opportunity, throws in the triple digits, and our thought is I've highlighted at times in this episode, and certainly have talked about in detail in other episodes, with these really good pitchers who are close to major league ready that we've talked about, as well as another 1 or 2 that aren't listed among the top 200 prospects. We do think potentially moving on from Mike Orozco, Daniel Blanco among our bullpen players, as well as potentially even considering moving on from the young starting pitcher Mike Gallick, could all be moves to help us free up some financial wherewithal, given that right now we don't have much money available, and we're also well below where we'd like to be in terms of our scouting and player development budgets, but feel that we do have a lot of reinforcements coming for the pitching staff, specifically the bullpen, that give us the flexibility to hopefully make some trades this offseason to get some salary off the books while bolstering our farm system, or maybe even helping our offense at the major league level. So as we get ready for the 2040 offseason to begin, feel like we're still definitely doing it from a position of strength. Obviously, we just won the World Series, and as we talked about, we've got a very good farm system as well, with a lot of help that's not too far away. When we look at our key players on our roster from this year, we could conceivably be moving on from the franchise Jake Ortega this offseason. I know some of you have encouraged me to move on from Jorge Mendoza to make room for Jonah Richards at catcher. But honestly, Mendoza is still a very special catcher, still in his 20s, very good to borderline outstanding defensively, and a very good bat as well. Can say a lot of similar things about Mr. Richards, admittedly, but since Richards has been unwilling to sign a long-term deal with us because he wants to get paid a ton of money, which given his incredible skill set, I completely understand. The thought is maybe we keep Mendoza around next year to be a great catcher for us, have Richards as a very productive bat at first base, and then get a compensatory pick an offseason from now if Mendoza presumably moves on as a free agent with the big money that he's looking for. And as I said, at that point, we could potentially slide Richards into catcher and put Lance at first base. Sergio Palomares, the veteran at this point center fielder, is a guy that we could be moving on from this offseason. Pitching-wise, Chase Dora and Mike Gallick, as we talked about, the two starters that are most likely done with us. But pitchers like Orozco and Blanco, as we talked about, could also be moving on as well to try to improve our financial situation and ensure that when we do head into the 21-40 season, we've got a team that can compete on the field at the major league level, but we're also not being delinquent in the amount of money that we're spending on scouting and player development. And right now, those levels are far below where I'd like them to be next year. So by the time we get into our next episode, it's possible I'll have done a couple of trades to clear off some payroll, or at the very least, in that next episode, I would think I'll be working on trying to perhaps execute some trades to clear up a little bit of money while trying to keep this team competitive as we attempt to position these Oakland A's for one of the few things we haven't done in this playthrough yet, which is win back-to-back titles. We're 3 out of 5 right now, as I said at the top of the episode, but would love at some point to be able to have a repeat. And that will certainly be the goal for 2041, and we'll start seeing what type of progress we make in revamping our roster to prepare for the 2041 season in this off-season in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.